Hi, welcome back to Grammar Time. This is Yosha speaking, and today we're going to be working on your grammar. Hi, and welcome back to Grammar Time. This is Yosha, and today we're going to talk about the passive voice. This video has become a bit longer than expected, so without further ado, let's just cut to the chase. You know the situation. Sometimes you don't know who did something, or you simply couldn't care less, as long as it gets done. Well, that's when you need the passive voice. In this video, we're gonna start by taking a look at what the passive voice is at all. Then we'll see what happens to the verb, what happens to the rest of the sentence, and finally, what to do with verbs with two objects, ditransitive verbs, which can be a bit challenging sometimes. Okay, so let's go. What is the passive? To start with, take a look at these two sentences. One of them is from an article on Alexander Graham Bell, the other from one on the telephone. Which would that be? Well, the telephone was invented by Alexander Graham Bell, and Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. In that context, it's pretty clear. The telephone was invented by Alexander Graham Bell. The sentence begins with the words the telephone, so it would fit in better in an article about the phone. If you put the inventor first, the article loses legibility. It reads less round, less fluent. If you compare them once more in context, it's really clear. Telephone, an apparatus with which people can talk to each other over long distances. The telephone was invented by Alexander Graham Bell. Versus telephone, an apparatus with which people can talk to each other over long distances. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. You see, in the second one, we changed the subject, and changing the subject in the middle of a text is bad style. If there is a different way, well, we use it. Plus, as I said before, sometimes we simply don't know or don't care who did something. The passive is your friend there. Okay, so what happens to the verb? Take a look at this sentence in active. They saw her. They saw her. Saw is the verb, and in the passive it becomes she was seen. She was seen. So what you do is you use be and the past participle. Be, of course, that means you have to use the correct form for the time form that you, are trying to make. So you transform an active verb into a passive one using the adequate form of to be as an auxiliary and the main verb's past participle. If there is more than one auxiliary, such as in present perfect, passive, or with a modal verb, the passive structure always comes last. They might have seen her becomes she might have been seen. They have seen her, she has been seen, and so on. Okay. That's so much for the verb. What happens to the rest of the sentence? You know, the entities, the people, things, or whatever in a sentence can take either of two main roles. The one who does things, the agent, and the other, who's been done things to, kind of, you know? Okay, so in an active sentence, such as they saw her, the agent is the subject. Whereas in passive, she was seen, the other becomes the subject. So to speak, in active, the agent verbs the other. In passive, the other is verbed by the agent. Keep the sentence in mind, it can really help you. Okay. Now, if you want, and if it's convenient, you may leave out the agent altogether in the passive. It's a way to make a sentence more impersonal. There's also this thing, an impersonal passive, but we'll talk about that another day. When you do want to include the agent, you can do so. And you do it by using an agent complement, which is made using by and the agent. So by them, by me, and so on. Now take a look at this here. The first working TV was built in 1927. Its inventor, Philo Farnsworth, was one of various people with similar ideas. Or, the first working TV was built in 1927 by Philo Farnsworth, who was one of various people with similar ideas. The first sentence, and the first paragraph really, it's two sentences of course, changes the topic. You may want to do that for stylistic reasons, you may not want to do it. The important thing here is, the first working TV was built in 1927, does not contain the agent. Whereas the first working TV was built in 1927 by Philo Farnsworth, and so on, does include it. Sometimes it's just a matter of choice, of style. Sometimes, well, there are good arguments for one versus the other. Let's practice this a bit. I'm going to show you some sentences and I'd like you to put them into the passive. In each case, the underlined part is the new subject. TV has changed the way we live. Put it into passive. The way we live has been changed by TV. Yes. Okay, next one. They've broadcast The Walking Dead since 2010. The Walking Dead has been broadcast since 2010. Another one. Millions of people watch TV news programs. In passive, TV news programs are watched by millions of people. One more. They'll market a tiny pocket TV. A tiny pocket TV will be marketed. One thing you see here is that in two of them there is an agent complement. In two others, in the others, there is not. Why? Well, first. The way we live has been changed by TV. The way we live has been changed. Yeah, okay. By what? It's kind of essential information here. The same happens with the TV news programs. TV news programs are watched by millions of people. If I simply tell you, TV news programs are watched, yeah, okay. What are you trying to say, man? Right? So, yes, you do need this agent complement to simply get the information in without losing focus on TV news programs, on the subject. With the other two, it's quite the opposite, really. The Walking Dead has been broadcast since 2010. What interests us here is the series and how long it's been up. We don't really care right now that it's an AMC series and that it's been broadcast by various chains. We just don't care, you know. What's important is the time when it started and the series itself. The same goes for the tiny pocket TV. A tiny pocket TV will be marketed. If I want to say buy such and such company, great, yeah, gorgeous. But if it's simply they will market and so on. A tiny pocket TV will be marketed by them. If I want to know, yeah, I can include it. But normally, I simply don't need it. Okay. So, let's go on to the next point. Verbs with two objects. You know, some verbs have two objects, typically a direct and an indirect one, but there can be others. The question is, what do we do with those? Take a look at this sentence down here. The king gave Carol a kiss. The king is the subject and the agent. Gave is the verb. Carol, the indirect object, and the kiss is the direct object. Okay. How do we transform this into the passive? After all, there are two others, two candidates that could become the new subject, Carol and the kiss. Let's start at the end. A kiss. Can you do the passive sentence, starting with a kiss? A kiss was given to Carol by the king. By the king, the agent complement you can just kick out, and in this case you can even kick out the preposition. You can drop it. Stylistically, I would prefer it in this case, but well, it always depends kind of. Now, let's do the same starting with Carol. Carol was given a kiss by the king. By the king, once more, if you don't want him there, kick him out. Now, we have two sentences here. A kiss was given to Carol by the king, and Carol was given a kiss by the king. Which one sounds better? And which one would you rather use? I think you're with me here, aren't you? Carol was given a kiss by the king. That simply sounds more natural, more normal, more expected. And the reason is simple. Carol is a person, and people are more interesting. A kiss was given to Carol by the king works. Carol was given a kiss by the king works. But a focus on people is what you normally expect and what you would normally do. You would normally focus on people. And that's why the indirect object, which is normally a person or a group of people, tends to be more likely to become a new passive subject. Okay, let's practice some more. In active, we have Rosita showed them the compound. Let's start by transforming it into the passive using the indirect object as the new subject. Well done. They were shown the compound by Rosita. And if we use the direct object, the compound was shown them by Rosita. Very good. Another one. She'd asked them the usual questions. Indirect object to be a new subject. Yes. They'd been asked the usual questions. By Rosita if you want. And this one, with the direct object becoming the new subject, the usual questions had been asked them. Them sometimes you can even kick out. And Rosita, of course, as she would be the agent complement, again, is not grammatically necessary. Although, of course, it might be useful information. Okay, so here we've got a few, but let's see some more. Rick's telling them everything. Rick is telling them everything. Let's once more start with the indirect object as the new subject. They're being told everything by Rick. And with the direct object, everything is being told them by Rick. And you already see, everything is being told them by Rick sounds weird in a way. It's grammatically sound, you can do it, but, well, they are simply more interesting to us because they are people. I've got another one here, the last one. They must ask Rick for permission. Let's start with Rick once more. The indirect object, Rick must be asked for permission by them if you want. Now, this is a bit different here. For permission is not a direct object, it's a prepositional object. Now, I want you to transform this one using from. permission must be asked from Rick. Yes, okay. And another possibility. This time use a genitive. Rick's permission must be asked. Yes. In this case, I would rather use the second version. Rick's permission must be asked, or perhaps permission from Rick must be asked. It's kind of stylistic again, and you once more kind of see that Rick must be asked for permission sounds more natural. Okay. Well, that's it for now. So, there we go, the passive voice in a nutshell. Let me just give you a brief summary. We use the passive voice in order to draw attention to something that is not the agent, either to the action itself, the verb, or to the other, whichever thing, whichever relationship is expressed by the verb. We make the passive verb using the auxiliary to be and the past participle. In case there is another auxiliary, such as in a compound tense or when you're using a modal verb as well, what you do is you put the passive bit at the end. She might have been seen as the example I showed you before. Okay, then there is the question of objects. Which object to use when there's more than one? We saw this whole thing of direct and indirect object. She was given a kiss by the king. A kiss was given to her by the king. Okay, which one is better? It depends on context. Context, content, context as usual. Only definitely most likely is the choice of using the indirect object as your new subject. Why? Because, well, it's normally a person, and people are more interesting than things. Okay, so what you need to do now is go and practice a bit. See you around, and don't forget to be awesome. Bye, and thanks for watching.